All righty then. We
Here
are
we are.
live.
Yeah.
How are you this morning, Brian?
I'm doing pretty good, Tim. Pretty good. I just realized, so like this is gonna be a really weird way to start the stream, right? But I cut my finger last night cooking.
Okay.
My index finger, which is, as it turns out, if you're right-handed, you use it a lot when you use a trackpad for your main input device. So
Oh, yes.
I'm using a whole combination of things, and typing's a little weird, and it's gonna be a great stream. I don't cut
And I
myself
cannot
on
wait
my
to ask you to type something. No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm doing okay with it. I'm doing okay with it right now. But it's one of those things where I never hurt myself cooking during the actual
Yeah.
cooking process. So like, my knife skills are solid. I've cut myself in the past on my knives cleaning them, and I happen
Okay.
to cut myself on this tool that I've got that like dices carrots real easily. And I was
Oh,
cleaning it,
yeah.
and I got myself. It's basically a glorified paper cut. But
You know
yeah,
what we can call this? You're now temporarily in need of accessibility on the website.
that have you ever seen that Microsoft diagram for
Not
accessibility
sure.
needs? Let me Google it real fast. We'll talk about what
Sure.
we're actually going to talk about today, but there's a really great diagram that showcases the idea of permanent temporary disability. And I think it's really
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, because nobody thinks about the fact that if you're carrying a baby and you need to make your train and you have to look at the timetable, you're going to do that on your phone probably, and then you have to walk there. You're literally temporarily disabled at that moment. You need accessibility. So the temporary bit is very important. Anyways, that's not what this stream is about, but you can
But I'm going
see
to
we
show it
are
real
pretty
fast because
excited about it. Did you find
you know
it?
how we are, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's been on the stream before knows, but this is the diagram I'm talking about, right? Where it's
Oh,
got this
yeah. I'm
idea
just looking at it.
of permanent, temporary, and situational. So like
Oh, look,
touch.
there's the baby.
Yeah, and like for me right now, I'm in this kind of temporary area where I'm not using my index finger, right? Like, but there's permanent, and then there's the idea that like you're holding a baby, or like when you've got auditory, right? Like if you're at a bar, you basically have this issue, right? This situational
Exactly.
thing. So I think it's really interesting to think about. Like, this is not. I mean, yes, very important that people with the permanent issues are taken care of.
Yeah.
But we all have some sort of issue every once in a while. Like, it's very important to remember. Anyway.
Okay, people, accessibility. Okay, stream over. No, it's not. I'm just
done.
kidding.
All right.
Honestly, if that was true, that could have been a great stream because
Sure.
this is a huge thing. So today we're talking Astro, right?
Yep. Astro. It's a big week for Astro. Astro and
It's very
Netlify
big
just announced new partnership stuff. They're launching some new features. We're not necessarily going to talk about those. We're going to talk about more the not the low-hanging fruit, right? But the important things that you might not be aware of when you're using Astro with a headless CMS.
Exactly. And one of such things, well, there's a few things because Astro, of course, is really, really good at just statically rendering your page and giving you all the DX that you want.
Yep.
Brian and I are big proponents of stuff like that. We actually still like to use the word Jamstack sometimes. Right? Oh no, is this another rant? Are we going to talk about Astro at one point?
It's an amazing thing. I did a stream months ago now on the future of the Jamstack, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I think that's a really interesting space still. Static, that sometimes we like to call it now instead of Jamstack, it's static first or HTML first or something along those lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your screen share is making some sounds.
What?
So I just click mute your screen share. Just
take
so
off my screen share because we don't need it
that's
anymore.
fine too. Yeah. All right. So what we'll do today is I built this Hygraph starter. Right. So when you go to hygraph.com to our dashboard and you want to start a website and you want to do something like luxury cosmetic shop-like thingy with still page building, you can use this starter. And so this is built in Astro. And so what we realized, this is fully static. So it's super fast. It works nice. It's just all the cool Astro things, right, that we know and love. However, what we also want is to have, for example, a newsletter subscription box, just to demo how that would work in Hygraph, but also how would we do that inside Astro, if it's server rendered or static rendered, or do I have serverless functions? Do I have API endpoints? I don't really know. And so when I built this demo, I kind of just not implemented it. Well, while I did do it in Next and Next, right? And so we also have something now about previewing my work. Because let's say I do a whole thing in the CMS, when we go to the CMS here, and then we have a homepage, I want to actually preview this work if I haven't published it yet. How would that work in a static site? Like I know like Nuxt.js used to have like a preview mode where it would only render like client side. And if you then liked it, you can then hit publish and it would just render it statically. But something like that doesn't exist in Astro because it can do all the JavaScript. It just by design doesn't exist something like this.
It is HTML first, right? It's static first.
We kind of like that though, right?
Yep. And the great thing, right, is theoretically, let's take a step back too about preview.
Yeah.
Like we'll talk about preview second half of the stream probably.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking about preview, the nicest preview experiences are going to be with these, like with the new meta frameworks, right? This idea that I can still server render when I need to, and that allows me to do the preview. It allows me to change my endpoint to get draft content instead of published content. However, even if you're using old school stuff, right? Even if you're using 11 is not old school. 11 is about to go 3.0 soon. But something that is pure static with no server-side rendering, right? You can still do preview. You just have to then work it into your build process, right?
Exactly.
Have a preview branch that goes up when you make new content, and then you can preview it there. It just takes a little longer, isn't quite as good.
We've seen that even being implemented at Netlify, for example, where they had that like a preview ability of something, and they would just make a branch, right?
Yep.
And then query that branch and then show that, and every change would build a new build. The thing is, if you do that, it's pretty expensive though, and it takes a second.
Yeah. And it's also there's time, right? And like some static generators are incredibly quick. Hugo 11, very, very quick builders.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some, like if you were to run Next in the old way, where you could run it pure static, you can't really
the
do
static
that
props thing, right?
Yeah, and it was actually an incredibly slow static site generator.
That's true.
Great for the server stuff that it's doing now. It was a slow static site generator. So if you wanted your preview to take 3 minutes to build, you could do it that way. But the better way in the modern meta frameworks is kind of the server rendered situation that we can show off.
Or this kind of strange client side only props render generation thing, which it was Nuxt too, right? So I'm talking about a few years ago, and that actually always went wrong because sometimes you need a server context if you want to draft query something, and then it was hard.
And here's like the hot take around, like, you know, the thing on the meta frameworks right now, and this goes for like all the big meta frameworks, is they're doing server, they're doing client, and they're doing static. They're doing them all together at the same time. And the context doesn't necessarily change, but the context, like for us as developers, it doesn't change, but for how the code is running, very different. So you have to be like real careful about where you put your Windows stuff, where you put your Node stuff. Like it still matters very importantly, but like the single file architecture on some of them makes it feel like I can run anything anywhere. And that's not the case. Like React server components, very different from other things. Like, I don't know.
Oh boy, don't get me started. I had to try some hook somewhere that I needed to go to a server component for something specific. Oh no, I needed to go to a client one, but then that hook wouldn't work in a client component, and then my brain broke after reading the docs for like 2 seconds.
Yes, and like that's the context, right? The human context that we're in when we're working on it does not feel different at all, which can be very solid developer experience, right? It can be very comforting that your code just is, you know, kind of the same everywhere until you hit the cases that it's not. And then it's like, I don't understand this, especially like as an average developer, not somebody who's up on the latest on everything. Like the average developer is going to get frustrated with that. It's going to end up being a poor one. Anyway,
I might interject there that if you want to have black magic and you just want to code something and it works in servers and client, go for Nuxt because they cracked that nut. Again, if that then goes wrong, you have to open the box and figure out why. That's worse.
You contact Daniel Rowe and you say, hey, please.
Yeah, you just ask Daniel and then it's fixed. I'm not sure how long I can keep that up. Anyways, let's have a look at this because you pointed me to this. So Astro actually has rendering modes. Why did I not know this? I'm not sure. Is this new or?
Here's the thing. It's actually pretty old at this point, but you're not. Your focus hasn't been Astro, and this is the modern development in a nutshell, right? Your focus was Nuxt, a little bit on the Next side, a little bit on some other modern stuff. If you're not up to date with all the frameworks all the time, these sorts of things will slip by you. And here's what's great about this. And this is, again, the Astro philosophy of the HTML first, the static first, is there are actually multiple output types, right? So you don't specify server-side rendering, right? And you get pure HTML. It's pure static everywhere. Every route is a static
this is the
route.
default essentially, right? Here.
You can even do read-only API routes, right? You can do static API routes that can generate in your build process data that you can then use as an endpoint. Super cool. I like that a lot.
So that base is what we see here, right? When I go to my page here, I have a get page function. I have a little queries one here, where I just query Hygraph, get back that data, and it just, you know, gives it here as page, and you can do whatever you need to do.
It creates the HTML for you. It builds all the routes for you. But also what I'm talking about is you can do API with this too. You can make something that can be, that you can do a get request to, and you can get data. Now that data
this
is
I can also
data.
do.
Yeah.
Interesting. So while it's building, it spins up something that runs as a server, so you can query it at that point or something?
It creates JSON files basically, but creates them potentially in a REST style format, depending on how
the payload JSON approach. Okay.
Exactly. Cool. But that's just like pure static, and we're not going to do that today, right? Because we want to post, we want to accept data. So we do need a server to do that. And there are two output modes.
So just for people who just came in, we want to do a newsletter subscription thing that mutates something on the CMS. So we need some sort of server code somewhere. Sorry, continue, Brian.
Yeah, no, we need server code somewhere. And Astro thinks of it in two different ways. And the great thing about both of these ways is it gives you the functionality of both sides. It just changes the syntax a little bit so that you decide what to opt in or out of. So you've got two outputs. You've got server, which is going to render the entire site server rendered, right? That index page that you showed then becomes a server route as opposed to a static route.
Okay, sure.
So you can do that. And then you can opt out of that for any routes that you need, that you want to be static. So
so that would be this one.
Yeah. So I can't remember the syntax, it's in here somewhere, but basically you say, I want this to be a pre-rendered page. I want this to be a static page.
Okay.
And then the opposite of that is hybrid. Hybrid says all of my routes by default are static routes. And then I opt in for server rendering for whatever routes I want. So with the two things that we're potentially doing today, depending on time, accepting a form submit and live preview, right? If we're just doing accept form submission, I would go with hybrid. Render all of my pages static, but render my API route as a server rendered page.
Exactly.
Right? As a server rendered route. If we want to do the live preview, the easiest way on doing that is going to have any page that we want to preview in server mode so that we can pass it the right stuff and act on basically what ends up being user input with us saying, hey, this is preview mode.
Exactly, because then the server can just run their draft queries and then suddenly it's preview mode.
Exactly. And so what we can do is for today, I think we're going to go output server, but know that if we decide any of our routes make sense to be static, we can set it's like export const pre-render equals true, I think.
Oh, like that? Oh, that's nice and easy.
Yep.
So
any route we want to be static gets that in its front matter and it's done.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like that's the DX, man. The front matter stuff. I love it.
And now I know I think Next has some functionality like this as well.
it's like use client in quotes. I remember that from the use strict days, and it just gives me pain in my backside. Remember that time?
Anyway, I actively avoided that time.
Yes, I agree. So you can see my integrations here. I have Tailwind, meta text, and sitemap. That's why there's a site property here, so it can make my sitemap on build. So there might be some sort of hybrid thing going on anyways in the build now.
So what's happening in the build there, it's not a hybrid thing, right? What's happening there is that when you've got a sitemap, you need to be able to have your full URL in that sitemap, right?
Exactly.
And by default, you could hard code it, right? Like if you were coding up a sitemap function from scratch, you could hard code that in. But what Astro has done is for the sitemap integration that you've got, you run sitemap as an integration, and then it's going to grab that site and it's going to prepend it to all of the relative links that it generates, right? All
Oh
the
yeah,
static
so
links
it's a
or the
hook
dynamic
into the
links.
generate, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
cool.
that way you've got it. But the nice thing is, if you ever need your site URL, you can do that as well. And since this is also JavaScript, you could also potentially dynamically generate that based on environment variables, right?
Exactly,
If you're
yeah.
using Netlify and it notices it's a production build, you could have that. You could also probably insert in there like the Netlify or the Vercel URLs that automatically come in, because it's all just JavaScript.
Exactly. Cool. So I set it to output server. Does this do it?
No.
I was ready for that.
Partially, right? But I believe if you ran this right now, Astro is going to give you an error. So let's actually see that, right? Because I think it's important to show, what this kind of thing can look like. And we'll also see if the newest version errors or not. I can't remember.
Oh, do we maybe need to update all the Astro things?
It wouldn't hurt to update all the Astro things, but let's see. It
actually just runs.
Yeah.
Let me just update everything first.
Yeah.
Just to be safe.
I will say this might work locally, and that's fine. We can just do it locally. But the minute you try to do output server or output hybrid and publish it to a host, to one of our modern hosts like a Vercel, maybe even AWS or Cloudflare or Netlify, you need to specify a provider here, because unfortunately they all do serverless slightly differently.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is a big thing that I've kind of talked about in the past when talking about like some of the Jamstack stuff. Like the portability of sites is hugely important.
Yeah.
And so with Astro, it's as easy as installing and adding a one of the integrations, right? And actually, I see you running npm i, but the other thing we can do, right, is we can actually run Astro update. And what Astro update will do is it'll get the newest version of Astro, it'll get the newest version of all the Astro dependencies, and the newest version of any integrations it knows about, and put all those together. I think it's going to be npx at astrojs/update.
Oh, that's it.
Yep. /update.
Like this?
Like that. There you go.
So node.
It's a weird one. It's running right now though, right?
No, it just gave me a 404. It doesn't know what Astro update.
Oh, okay, hold on. I've got the URL. I'll paste it in our private chat real fast. But
upgrade.
Upgrade. I'm sorry. That's on me. That's my bad.
But that always happens for me. Update and upgrade do different things sometimes.
Yep. And naming's hard.
Oh, there you go. It works.
It tells you, right? Cool. And I love the DX in Astro. I love the CLI in Astro. They call their little mascot Houston in there. It's real cute. But honestly, it tells you.
Astro has one of the best CLIs in that sense.
Agreed. And like you look at it, and you're like, here's everything that it upgraded. Super nice to know. Because the other thing, let's go ahead and do one more thing. Run npx hold on. Let me actually grab the right thing so I don't make this happen again.
I'm thinking this.
Astro. Yeah, add Netlify. There we go.
Because we're gonna go put this on Netlify, of course.
And they have a Vercel package, they have an AWS package, they've got a Node package, they've got Cloudflare.
It's really cool. Oh, so it's adding this to my
this is the thing. It's asking you, do you want me to do this? Yes, we do want them to do this. And then it adds it. So if you were to actually go into your code, it has updated your Astro config for you.
Yeah, this is great.
Yep. And now, like everything that has a CLI does this sort of thing. Like it'll add.
Yeah, Nux does it too. It works pretty well.
I just love that it outputs that in the terminal, right? It says, "Hey, I'm going to make these changes. Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "Yes, thank you." But you can also see, like, is this going to actually, did it make a mistake? I never trust the computer, so I always want to verify.
How do we know if this is running server-side code?
So locally, there's not going to be a super easy way to tell, I don't believe. However,
unless we make a server route to do
the important thing to note, right, is all of these are server routes now. Because
everything is a server route now, whatever we do. Okay, cool.
Yep. So every single thing in there is server rendered. So we could make an API endpoint now if we want to.
Exactly. So do we just make? What do I do? I'm just going.
The great thing, streaming with Tim and Brian, super awesome. We both talk a lot.
We just run.
Exactly. We just go. So yeah, we're gonna make a server endpoint API route, and to do that, we can put this in our pages. So in our pages, let's make a new file. Let's call it. I don't know what do we want to call this. This would be.
Well, if we want to do a newsletter subscription, right?
Maybe a subscribe route.
And then do we do this?
No. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, I think we can just do TS, but let's be on the safe side. And I'm looking at the docs right now, and let's make it .json.ts.
Okay. This.
Yeah. And yeah, and you can do JavaScript if you'd rather. You know me, I'd rather do JavaScript.
We're going to go JavaScript.
Yeah. So let me actually pull up. Here we go. So we're in kind of an. Actually, we could even put this. Let's put it into an API directory too, because I think that's just cleaner for our code. Because maybe we actually want a subscribe page, right? Like maybe we want there to be a page.
Yeah, exactly. On. Okay, so we have an API folder with a subscribe.json.js inside now.
Exactly. So now inside this, what we want to do is we want to export out a post method, basically. So we're going to export const post. It's got to be a const, yeah. And then since we're doing TypeScript, we're going to get
yelled it's just JavaScript. It's just
you moved to JavaScript. Perfect.
Yeah,
I love JavaScript. And that's going to equal, let's make an async function, async. And inside of your arguments, you can actually destructure in an object for the request. So we can actually get the request that's being made inside this function.
So it's just going to be like this?
No, I would do so. Curly braces and just request inside curly braces.
Ah, sure.
That would be spreading, I guess. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad.
Yeah. So now let's just for the sake, let's just console log request.
The thing is, how do we console log to post? So we have to make a form now.
Or run it as in like a Postman or something like that. But
yeah, but Postman to local, I'm not sure I've had that set up. What I can do though is from another code base, just quickly copy paste
a form.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me just find this. Components footer. Oh, that's a newsletter component, obviously.
Yeah. It's not cheating if it's just good prep work.
Exactly. It's not cheating if it's prep. But
yeah,
where
I'll
do we
say, like, as Tim grabs this, if there are any questions about Astro, about Hygraph, about the interplay between the two, or about the code base that we've kind of glossed over thus far, because it's obviously only important as it's a landing for us on this, do ask in the chat over, I think somewhere over there probably, or like down below, depending on what system you're on, YouTube or Twitter or LinkedIn. We'll answer.
Okay, so for now, this is not a form. It's actually just an input. So do we make it a form? Is that the way in Astro?
Form with an action, and the action will be that route that we just created, /API/subscribe. And the fun thing, right, is I'm doing this like kind of old school. The Astro docs, and hopefully we don't get bitten by this. The Astro docs want you to do this as a client side form, right? You hit submit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought it would be.
Yeah. Old school is just as good. And the cool thing is once you submit this the first time, it'll take us to that route, and then you can refresh that page and it will send the post every time.
Oh yeah, exactly. So we don't need, do we need ID? Yes.
I think that's good enough.
Type email required. Oh, there's no name.
We don't need it yet though. We're just confirming that we're server-side rendering.
This is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's put that where it needs to be, and then we'll save it in and check the page.
I'm just trying to. Okay, so it doesn't like a button. Cannot find the button.
Weird.
It is what it is.
Well, so the other thing to think about, right, is the fact that all Astro files are TypeScript by default. And so what's probably happening there is that you haven't defined the type of button, and you would want to do that for anything like that. And I think you can probably get that in their types. Anyway. Yep, test.
Oh, it's an
You
email.
made it an email input. HTML inputs have types. And all right, so we're getting a 404. That's our first issue. I can't read your
We
URL.
go to API/subscribe now.
All right, so we have our first hurdle.
API subscribe.
Yep. All right, let's get rid of the .json. It should that should be fine, but we'll move on. In fact, now that I'm reading the form, the endpoint docs wanted the JSON in there. The form docs didn't. So there we go. This is good.
Okay, we have to
you're supposed to return a response. Like if you're posting, you're supposed to give a response back. So that's a great error. I love that error.
This is a really good error.
Yep.
This is what I need to do.
And that's what you need. And that's just the type up there. So we don't even need that.
How does it know? Oh, how does it know it's getting a response though? You just have it?
So that's an interesting thing. I thought I would have needed on that no, because new response is actually default node, right? It's default JavaScript.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And this, so in say in Next, right? Or maybe Next has this too. I'm just familiar with Next. Next has new response that you can do, and that's just node. Or you can do next response, and next response has a little extra flavor in it.
Yes, I know exactly. Yep. In Next, they just, if you return something, they'll just assume things and then fix it for you. And if you want something special, you can do the special thing. That's why for me it felt like this was fine, because Next is always basically my teacher, and it's just fine. I don't have to do anything.
Which honestly, other types of systems, if you're just doing pure node, it's gonna error quietly on that. Astro's like, no, what the heck, guys? Like, this is not what we need. And again, I think there's an emphasis in Astro for web platform best practices, right? They're very heavy into that. So I think that's probably a reason for it as well.
All right, so this is working.
Yep.
Well, let's just try this one more time. We'll just go to the home page.
Also in there, go ahead and console log your request so that we can.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And the other thing, right, is you shouldn't have to resubmit this form over and over again. You can actually refresh that response page. It will resubmit the same form data.
Oh, that's actually very nice.
Yep. Again, I'm a console log driven developer, so I have to do this a lot.
Oh, that was wrong. I've zoomed in a lot, but here we go.
Yep.
Is that an email?
Yeah.
Apparently it is. Well, let's have a look at the
we
log.
Should, in our terminal now, there's our request.
So we're clearly on the server now. This is great.
It's all on the server. We should also have, is there a body in here?
There should be. Doesn't look like it. But maybe it's because we're not asking. Otherwise, there might be too much in this.
And really what we're going to end up doing is in our server code, we're going to need to get the data off of it. Because really when you're doing it, if you look at the URL in your code real fast, or not in your code, in your browser. Yep. Oh, it doesn't actually show it. Really what you're getting is the form data in there as well in the request. So we should be able to await the data in that.
How does that work? Do we have some docs for Astro to await this kind of post body thing?
So I'll actually share the docs that I'm using as a cheat sheet right now, which is they have a recipe that is setting up form handling.
I wish I could copy paste it, but I can only do this.
Yeah, I know. Really, again, their SEO game's on point. You look up Astro server-side endpoint, you'll get this. You look up Astro form, you'll get this. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to, off the request, get the run a form data method.
So this one, right?
Yep, that one. That's what I'm
Holy crap. This is very easy. So we just need this then.
In theory. And if not, then we debug, and I love debugging live. I think it's an important
it's great. So we don't send name. I think we send email, right? Let's see. My footer, email, or name, email.
The name is what we want, but that's the same thing, and then go ahead and in the result here, let's make that into a JS template literal, and let's, you could just do email, sure.
Yeah, just keep it simple.
All right, just refresh.
Repost.
Resend. Yep.
There it is. Nice.
There it is. So easy peasy. So now the fun thing, right? We've taken care of the easiest bit of Astro. Now,
Exactly.
error handling, absolutely. Sending responses back, absolutely. Redirects, absolutely. But let's do a mutation. Let's go
Yes,
to
we want some
Hygraph and let's set
stuff.
up a model to take care of this, because we don't have one in that Hygraph project, in the Hygraph studio.
Exactly. So let's go to Hygraph and actually set up something like you just said. So go to schema,
Yep.
and then we just add a new schema for subscribe. I cannot do this though, because the plural would be weird.
Well, we've actually kind of, yeah. I would just do subscribe. Our display name always assumes singular. We get an API ID and a plural one. Hey, Alion.
Do we need to put? Oh, here he is.
Yep.
The master himself.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna be self-conscious because
now we need to show that we know the stuff.
I really know this stuff, Tim. Absolutely.
Oh, you actually do much more than me.
Kind of.
Okay, email. We could have some fun and make this and do this.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing, right, is that this is since this is mostly API, I'm not sure if that validation is going to be in the mutation.
Oh,
so,
that's interesting. Well,
I'd have to go look into the way we handle that. I can't remember now.
I imagine it's in there. Okay, so we just added.
Looks pretty nice. I agree.
That Astro thing, it kind of works, doesn't it?
I like all the meta frameworks for what they do in their own ways. Astro clicked for me more than others, personally.
Okay, so how about we go to the API playground and have a look at what that could work like?
What the mutation
could look like?
You can open the Explorer if you want. I'm an Explorer. It doesn't really matter for mutations that much. So instead of go down to the very bottom of that area. Instead of new query, mutation, and click the add button to the right.
Oh, I have to actually click that.
Yeah, okay. This is kind of the graphical interface in general. So now we can do all the CRUD operations as well as a publish an operation. But yeah, so create subscriber. We need an email.
And then we want to return something, I imagine.
We have to return something in a GraphQL call, but yeah.
So
yep.
So, well, we can just give it a test now if we wanted to.
So yeah, we're going to set up a variable in GraphQL. And if you're not a GraphQL person, this might seem a little strange, but the upside of setting up a variable like this is that in our code base, we'll be able to pass that in via programmatically speaking. We don't have to depend on things, and it ends up being typed correctly and stuff like that.
I think
this will be a string, I believe, yeah. And it will be required. So you can see Tim put an exclamation point at the end there to say, if a mutation comes through without this, it's not proper.
So we're testing Alien here.
Totally the correct email address there.
It's all good.
See, we get back the actual thing that gets mutated into the system that gets created.
Exactly.
Again.
So we return the email again.
Yep.
So let's remember this. I'm just copy pasting here. Copy.
I always start my queries and my mutations in the API playground, right? The API playground is a nice way of testing.
And here you go.
Yeah.
We just added this, and so if we go again, and we now change this variable to awesome.
We get a whole new one. Yep.
And there's another one. So this is working. So what we now need to do is let's have a look at how I query in my other Astro stuff. Yep. So I can use the same thing essentially. So I have this queries thing like get page. So you can see I'm actually using GraphQL request here. So I'm imagining I can just use GraphQL request as well. Yes. In our API endpoint. So let's grab this and put that in here. What we do need to do though, and this is a slightly fancy thing we didn't really discuss. I actually have a code generation thing here. And what this does is when you run this, it looks at Hygraph's schema. and it introspects everything, and then it makes you TypeScript types. However, of course, we haven't really done any TypeScript in here, but if I do that, it will not error if I start typing some things. So
now
I'm just going to run. Go on.
I was going to say, I think it's going to break actually, but let's see.
It might actually. So what it just did, it actually found a whole bunch of, like, don't look at this, it's just a new Node version. So it looked at all these kind of different things, and it created this GraphQL folder here with all the types that it got back out of Hygraph. So we have everything, and these are now types, right? And so we can probably find, if we wanted to, subscriber, you see?
Yep.
So there's a type now for subscribers. And so there's a whole bunch of queries we could now do. Anyways, let's not go
all
too
these
deep.
Are automatically created by doing that. You don't have to do any of this to use GraphQL. It's just a nice little piece.
This is just fancy, essentially.
Yeah. You're a fancy guy, Tim.
Sometimes we fancy it. And so now if I wanted to have a type for published or staging, or published or draft, I can just grab that type from my own GraphQL folder because it made it now. Anyways, we need our endpoint, which is an environment variable.
Otherwise, the endpoint being not the Astro endpoint, but being the Hygraph endpoint that exists as the Hygraph API.
Exactly. This is our Hygraph API endpoint.
Which, look, it pulls up just a regular old graphical interface.
Yeah, exactly. So that we have. So what else do we need? Let's go back. So we can use a GraphQL query. Like, this is a pretty big query, but we can let's just copy this stuff, and then we remove what we don't need and add our mutation in it.
Yep.
And we don't need any of this stuff.
Get rid of all the query, and then we can move the get rid of that top line too. And then you'll paste in the query that
we don't even need this. Yep. Exactly.
We
just go back to this. This is what we need. So we're mutating, and we're creating a subscriber, and we're grabbing the email. And so to make this work, we need variables as well, which is this email. Of course, we have the email here, right?
Yep.
So we might have to put this here.
I like that you decided to move those up as opposed to moving the query down. I
don't know how my brain works.
Yeah.
My brain just works a different way, I guess. Yeah, so here, when you want to actually do that, this request function comes out of GraphQL request here on the top.
Yep.
And so a request actually gets an endpoint, the query, and the variables. Yep. So what we need is just this one. And so,
and again, important to note, if you're not familiar with GraphQL request, you can do these with standard node fetch, and it just requires a little bit more boilerplate code. This is just a nice wrapper around it that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, we can literally just do window.fetch with a post in here.
Yep. I'm even saying you can, remember, this is the conversation from earlier where we're talking about context. This is a server route. It is not, it has no window. So you'd use Node's built-in fetch.
Oh, that would be the node fetch. Exactly. Yep. So we can probably do this because
yes, I believe that will work. Yeah.
What we would need for this query is the endpoint. We have it from our environment variable. The query we created here, and then we have the variables, which is a simplified version. Like this would be the same as this. Oh, not mail. So we're sending email, which we have here, to the variable. So this thing is literally this thing.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
And when you in JavaScript, if you say email, it automatically understands that's both the variable you're passing in and the property name that you want to call it.
So what we need to check is what does it look like when I get this back? So let's send this again. So what it gets back is data, create subscriber, email. So what we might do is do return dot data. So what we get back is now this, essentially. This is what it should show us in the return. There's no defensive code here. There's nothing. And
it's important to note we are going to get an error here, just so you know.
Tell me why.
Because we don't have permission to make a mutation.
Oh yeah. Let's try it though.
Yep, I think that's always fun.
Okay, it's running still. Do we want to go reload this?
I just
Or-
reload the page. Yes, it's the same form submission over and over again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's different. Oh yeah, I see. Just let's get it's in the wrong spot for that one.
Ah. That was just a little silly, wasn't it?
That's a different error.
That was just a
Not the
little
one I
silly.
planned on.
Oh, it actually really doesn't like it.
Request is not a function. Where's that?
Isn't it here?
Hold on.
Oh. Request is clearly something coming out of the post.
Yeah. So let's
We're just gonna hijack.
Ellie and I completely agree. I think this is how I debug, right? Different error is good. I like different error.
Oh, this is the worst thing. What's happening now?
Let's see. Invalid AST node.
I don't know what this means.
That's a new one for me.
Let's see if it actually runs the page at all. Of course not.
You strict and deficit. That's great. So basically an error is happening, and then the error is causing an error in the error handling of
yeah.
nets.
So we'll not do it. We'll not do crazy imports with modules and stuff like that. We will just change request to rack. I think this is probably better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm worried now. Okay. No. Same thing.
Okay. Nope. Nope.
Yeah, it's one of those.
All right. Well, here, let's do this. We can go to a basic fetch.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it would still take the endpoint as the first argument, and then it's going to be an object for the second argument. It's going to have
this, oh boy, not like that.
Yeah. And then that takes a body.
Oh yeah.
The body's going to be JSON stringify of query and variable.
It really doesn't like this. Wait.
Yeah, like that. There we go.
Oh, of both, you mean?
So yeah, you'll now inside this do object notation and do variables, comma, query. Because we're going to stringify this JSON object. Because fetch, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Wait a second. Right. Something is unhappy. Here we go. But you need to post also, right? How does it know it's to post?
Okay, then it's going to be, all right, let me go to fetch.
I think it's this. Oh, but then this has to be body.
Then that's body. Yes, exactly.
I
body
think
is
this might be it.
Yeah, that should get us where we need to get the error that we're expecting to get.
Okay, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm ready for it to break.
We're like, this feels like raw dogging to me. I think it just worked. Success is true, but it's not actually showing me like this.
Because we're probably getting things back that we don't expect, right? This is actually unsuccessful is what's happening. So we're not defensively coding. So let's console log subscriber query, which is actually the
result.
Query is a bad name because it's actually the response we're getting back from that. But this will get us the error, and the error is going to be a permissions error. I'm 95% sure. Refactoring on the fly.
Oh my god, yes. This is just how it goes. I really enjoy this.
All right.
Okay.
400.
Okay. This is exactly what we expected.
Yeah.
Oh no, 400 means we actually it's a broken URL it's broken data, right?
Let's see.
It's not like a 403 you're not allowed to.
We want to get the body back here. Yeah, like and David in the chat, right? Maybe with the try catch. Yeah, exactly. Like we should be doing that. We're just trying to be quick and dirty on it.
I know we should have done this.
Yes. When there's an hour to get this done and to also have banter, I think it's not a huge amount of time.
What this is always so interesting, right? Why does it now not like this anymore? Because
Because
essentially,
you're
when
not
you do
using it.
try catch, you just put it in a different scope in the function.
Yes, as I said, it's the idea of the modern constant let, right? Constant let as variable definitions are only within the scope of the current JavaScript, which is usually defined by the curly brackets, right? By the braces around it. So technically, by trying to do the return at the end, we're actually failing that. It's not going to have access to that because it's only going to have access to it. Yeah, you did it right. I'm explaining
Exactly.
why you do it. Yep.
This is not exactly what I like, but there we go.
All right, we still get the success. That's we know. Are we console logging anything anymore?
Oh, would that be my fault? Yes. Well, I'm console logging the error, which is then actually
The problem
not
is I don't think technically the in a try catch like this, I think we're actually succeeding.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm thinking as well.
But again, all we care about, what I actually want is let's do body.json. Let's get the version of that. And again, I know what the error is here. The error is going to be a permissions error.
So you want me to?
So for our response, do after this, do const sorry, I'm pointing, you can't see. In our try, right here, do const response JSON or JSON or something like that equals await subscriber response dot JSON as a method, I think.
Oh, that's this. Of course, we're returning a promise and nothing is happening.
We're getting a readable stream. We need to convert it to actual data, and then we can console log the response JSON and get what we want.
You know what the problem now is with
And
the try catch?
what we need is subscriber response dot body dot JSON. Sorry, nope, not here. Up one. Oh, you could do that there too. Sure, yeah, that would also be fine. But the actual readable stream is the body. Yeah.
The thing is, now that we have the try catch in place, this is now nothing here. This is actually something in here only.
What we would want to do, right, is we would say it's the same kind of thing, right? You got either hoist it or you got to put your return in your try.
Exactly. Ooh. Yeah, I thought that body thing. I think it's like
that might
this.
be my bad.
Yeah. I think it's like this.
Okay.
I think.
See, but then body is a readable stream.
But
let's see what get body, like console log body. Oh, I see there. Errors GraphQL query is required. Interesting. We're not passing it a query. How are we not passing it a query?
What is happening?
This is why GraphQL request is so helpful.
Yeah, GraphQL request would just do it for us. So let's just see what we're pushing into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Variables. Oh, the query is actually not a query. All right.
Yeah. See, there you go. Where are we setting query? It's there.
You know what?
Oh, but we no longer have GraphQL. Yep.
No, let's just not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think now it will probably work.
Yes.
Let's just okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah. We didn't have that method anymore for very specific reasons. So yeah.
We didn't have it because of reasons.
Because of a very specific reason that there's just no time to get into. No, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, finally.
That's the expected error. So,
all right.
We have the ability to set up a default set of permissions that are your public permissions. We've been using an endpoint that has public permissions set up on it, which are 100% read only. We need to pass a token in, and we need to make sure that you can have permission to mutate, right? Have create permissions on whatever we want to set up. So we can do that within Hygraph. We can set up a new public access token that has very specific permissions around it. And even though this is a server rendered page, right, we're still going to set these up to be very granular because we don't want them able to go in and edit or create new products, right? We only want them able to create subscribers. So what Tim's doing here is he's going to go, yep.
Subscriber, create.
We'll also need read on this. It tells you that here too. It says when you're doing create, you also need read.
So English, we're just going to go create. There's no specific conditions to this because you could do, if I am ID this, I can only then create, like there's some super complicated awesomeness that
if we set up, like if this were like a commenting system, right? And we set up specific users in there, we'd want to say you can only edit your own comments. So we could say where user ID on comment equals the thing that gets passed in, allow for editing. If we were going in that direction.
So we just added this specifically on the subscriber. We can read, create, and update. I just added update to be safe.
Yeah. And was that a public? Tim, did you just put that on our public content API?
Yeah.
Okay, let's delete those permissions real fast.
Okay. I'm like so pragmatic right now. We have 9 minutes.
Hey, best practices for this. I'll set up a permanent access token, right?
Okay. Yeah, you're actually right.
Yeah. And then just add token on the left. Don't set up a default. Yep.
Okay.
Subscriber.
Okay, you're right.
I know.
Okay, so this is important. Default stage needs to be draft because
this is for content delivery.
Oh, wait, this is delivery. Let's do publish. Yeah.
Again, this won't matter because the things we're getting don't matter on this. All right, so we want that token. And then we also want permissions. Yep. This is permissions we just did around, subscriber, read.
So I'm not going to fill this out because it's going to say all by default.
But we don't want update. Update we don't care about. Yep. All right, now we get that token. We're going to pass that as a header, as a bearer token into our authorization header in our fetch request. And it will allow us to do what we need to. It's going to be headers, yeah. And then capital A authorization, I believe, in quotes.
It should know it is.
It's got to be a string. Authorization. I think it needs to be a capital A, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I'm sure, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Then bearer with a capital B and our token.
Am I just going to post this here?
I would do process.env.hygraph token. And then we'll add that in our environment. We got 7 minutes. We can do the minor best practices.
Yeah, we can do it.
Until they break. And then when they break, we just throw caution to the wind and put a string in there.
All right.
So now, got to run it again. And then, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And then we rerun. But that's interesting. Let's see what happens in console.
Somehow it's getting.
Oh yeah, go ahead, go resubmit the form. Maybe. There we go. Token contains an invalid number of segments. Did you copy everything? Did you paste everything?
You bet. Click to copy.
Okay.
It could be that I made a typo in here.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
No.
Let's run it again.
Yeah. Oh, that's why it is.
Import. Yeah.
We are in Vite, my friend. We're in Vite land.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're ever wondering how to get environment variables when you're running in Vite, it's not process.env.variable name. It's import.meta.env.
Oh, yo.
There it is. We got it back.
Wow. Okay. Now, just a real test. We're going to the homepage.
Yep.
I'm going to try. Okay. How about this?
Looks good to me. Totally
Yeah,
my
right?
email address. Try it. Yeah.
Okay, so we got this back.
Yep.
Now, go to the content. We go to subscribers, and there you
There
are.
it is. Yep. We didn't have to refresh, didn't have to go anywhere. It was right there.
It's just there. And also it's in draft mode just for safety. And what you can see now, that the update is actually the subscriber token we created and not Tim.
Yep.
Which is cool.
It keeps you able to audit what's happening in your system. Did one of my editors do it, or did my program do it? Super handy to have.
And so now you could also, if you wanted to, use a subscriber content API endpoint to do things. You can set that up in here. That's pretty nice.
Yep, automatically. That's just in the playground at that point, ready to go.
It just sits there now.
Yep.
Yeah. So
and any token you add in there, so you can do your testing with the specific permissions that you're working on, which is super handy.
Okay, so Brian, we have 4 minutes.
I think we're in recap mode for 4 minutes, right?
Yeah, I want preview.
If you can do it in 4 minutes, Tim, more power to you. I can't do it in 4 minutes. So.
Let's see, because there is a basic thing. So what we need to do preview is query the draft API. And so in my get page TypeScript, this is TypeScript because that's how I build it. You see there's a stage for published or draft.
Yep.
And the way we get that is basically, that's the query you send here, right?
Yep.
And so if we now go to my page, where are my pages? Index. There's an isPreview function that I built in helpers. So let's go to isPreview. And it literally just right now looks at the Hygraph isPreview equals yes, because true and false doesn't work from these kind of things because it's just strings. So if we set it to yes, it will query the draft. Right?
Here's my favorite part about the naming there is I would have said true. I would have still had true, but that would end up getting confusing to the person that comes later on.
This is now not a Boolean.
It's not a Boolean, it's a string.
That's why I put in yes.
Yep.
So essentially, we can now check if preview is actually true, and then I'm querying draft. So in 3 minutes, let's have a look. When I go to my get page, let's have a look if I'm actually querying draft. And if so, preview should just work. Let's just make sure we can see through all the stuff.
Yep.
You see, this is console log debugging, man. I'm so old school.
Yep.
So we're just going to have a look at the stage. I think I might have to restart just to be safe. It's so fast, this restart is crazy.
Yep. Yeah, Elliot and I are on the same page here. Your confidence, I have got confidence in you, but man, just works. Famous last word.
No. It's okay. Draft. Okay, we're querying the draft API.
All right.
So we already are in preview. So what that means is now what we should set up for our content, for our page, for our schema, for the page in the sidebar, we set it to preview, edit. And so extra clicks.
Yep.
So it should literally, because it's already in preview mode, this is now my preview API, right? So it's just a slug page. So that slug variable is just what Hygraph then puts into the preview mode. So if we now made a new page with a slug about, I think it's this. Just add one component. You'll get a really fast way to let's get something that actually works.
Tim, you can do it. Go, go, go.
What did I just click on? I don't want this. Just give me the thing.
The stream just automatically ends at 11 Eastern time. It just ends.
Wait, 1 minute. Okay, so this page should now exist.
It's saved, is not published.
No, would have been so nice, right? I know what it is though. This looks, look, my page is literally just index.astro.
Yeah.
So
you don't have a dynamic route set up in Astro right now.
No, I don't know why I did not do that, but can still do it. Not about, we just go to home, preview home. Okay, I'm just not going to be able to solve this now.
Yeah.
Because I
Again,
have to then.
three
Anyway,
minutes was hubris, Tim. It was confidence. I like to see it.
I like to see it too. I
Yeah.
think I might have solved it now.
More famous last words.
Famous last words preview. Okay, so we're in home.
Yep.
Let me just do hero. I'm typing some stuff. I'm not publishing. I'm just saving. Preview. Beam.
There it
Works.
Yep.
Because this is not published.
That is not published because we're looking at the draft API locally.
Exactly.
And then you could even put this on a server somewhere doing the server-side rendering, check for that query, and change what you pass to the query to be either yes or no, I guess, depending on draft status for the for that query parameter.
See, I added the S here. So essentially, if this was on a server, like you just said, and it was looking at preview and it's in server rendering mode, this is actually now working. I know it's kind of weird because this is localhost, right? But we just verified that it's like, oh, you know, we can do one thing and then we end the stream. Okay, let's save this. So this is not published. We're in preview mode, so you see all the things. Now, here we go. I'm making my own grave here. No. It's kind of nicer than true and false, right? Okay, so now on this homepage, I should not see that because I'm only looking at published rather than draft.
And again, like this is all in environment variables right now, but it very much could also be set as a query that you make based on query parameters passed in. So you could check for, is preview true in the query parameter of the URL? Since we're now server rendering, you could check that in your code and change that variable.
You can just as well do this and then look at this rather than my environment example, but we have it.
Yeah. All right. So quick recap, right? We updated Astro via npx astro.js/upgrade, right?
Upgrade, yes.
That upgraded all of our packages for us in a very nice compact CLI format. Then we changed our output from the pure static that is what Astro defaults to, again, static first, HTML first, into this idea of server-side rendering. Now, we chose the server output as opposed to the hybrid output. What that means is that we opt in all of our routes to server rendering, and if we want to take a single route and make it static, we add a variable. The opposite is true for hybrid. Hybrid sets everything to static and allows you to opt in the server render. If we were just doing the form submission, we would do that probably via hybrid. Since we wanted to do preview and eventually change that to a query parameter, we set it to server so that everything is opted into server-side rendering. Then we set up an API route that accepted a post. That post then accepted the request and got the form data off that request. Super, super easy with Astro. That was a real nice process. Then we set up a mutation in Hygraph with a model that we set up today to basically have email addresses for subscribers. Then we submitted those. We went through like 15 different errors. That was a fun time. And then we finally got the error we wanted, which was our permissions error. We set up new permissions with a permanent access token, submitted, and then we got email addresses coming in from our Astro site locally to our Hygraph project, to our Hygraph studio, ready to be put into whatever system you want for where your subscribers are. Recap done.
And we set up preview.
And we set. I'm sorry, Tim. And we set up preview.
Was my 4 minutes of fame.
Your 4 minutes. They were amazing.
My last words that actually worked. Anyways, that was fun. I love streams like this where we just learn in public, and then you notice how good tools are. From Hygraph with setting it up, how well that works, to GraphQL, to Astro being super friendly. Like these errors are great. We figured it out in a second. The CLI working. Like, yeah, good stuff.
Yep. Now let's do some calls to action here since we still got folks.
Yes.
You pick one, then I'll go.
Okay. Let's do the docs. We want to do the docs?
Hey, Ramina's been in here, so absolutely we should do the docs.
All right. So we have comprehensive docs for Hygraph. at hygraph.com/docs. And in there's like a bunch of new things where we do getting started guides, but also recipes for a lot of things that we use that you probably saw today even.
Yep.
You know, how to set up like a navigation or a CTA button. Then we have integration guides for Astro and Nuxt and Next and Remix now. And is Flutter live already?
Remix, SvelteKit, and Flutter are all live in the implementation guides now.
Exactly. So we have a ton of stuff. And so how about you go for the next one? This one.
Yeah. So if you have any questions from today, or you're trying something with Hygraph and you're stuck on something, you're trying to figure something out, we have a Slack community, slack.hygraph.com. We answer questions in there. Our product team answers questions in there. We just launched our studio, which is our new experience, and people who are asking questions about that. Our CEO is in there answering their questions. So there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in our community at slack.hygraph.com.
I think we did it. This was a lovely stream. I always have fun.
Everything that we did today perfectly works in the free account that you can get at hygraph.com/signup. That's going to allow you to do the things that you saw today for free. We start charging way higher up than all these things that we demoed today.
Yeah, if you wanted to do things like localizations and extra users and all that stuff, it's all still free. It all works.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Oh, we have a comment, I think. There we go. This is what we wanted.
Always good. Always good to see. And thanks for coming in today, Alan.
Cheers, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.